1744. The Church of the New Path, founded by the priest Bain, did not set out to be in direct opposition to its progenitor, but could not seem to avoid the conflict. Both faiths clashed frequently wherever they went, the old refusing to yield ground to the new. It made the spread of the burgeoning church that much more difficult. Not only did they have to overcome the resistance of the masses to their unconventional beliefs, they had to also defeat the active interference of the Church of the Path. Despite the difficulties, it is remarkable that the faith expanded to the extent that it did. Perhaps it was the will of the Great One that it be so. Excerpt from the private notes of historian. Right. Well, nothing of interest is happening here, no great learning or secret mysteries are unfolding in the slightest. Faith, belief, I can't imagine it's important, and therefore I have no need to look further into it. So I dismiss Bain and run away into a side chamber to look at my skills, which I definitely want to do. Since when have I ever avoided monitoring my skill levels and ensuring that I increase the rank of everything that's reached its cap? Grannon has been telling me to do it for ages, after all, and I would never want to let him down. Tiny, Chrysalis and Nvidia pile in after me, but so does Victor before we manage to shut the door. It's not easy to find rooms large enough for me to fit in anymore, but I have a sneaking suspicion the colony has been building here and there since I evolved. Well, I know for a fact they've been doing that, and they haven't so much been building rooms as knocking walls down and combining smaller rooms. Make sure you guys check your skills as well, I tell my 3 associates. If I have to do this, then you have to as well. Chrysalis waggles a tentacle at me uncertainly. Master, we check our skills regularly. That's what Mr. Grannon and the Triad asked us to do. Dang it. Well, do it anyway. It'll make me feel better and I would really appreciate it. Tiny and Nvidia share a quick glance, then they both shrug and oblige me. Chrysalis reaches out and gives me a pat on the carapace, offering some comfort, before she turns to engage her status. All right then, Victor. What did you need? You can take as much of my time as you want. All of it. It's not that I need distracting or anything. I'm just really interested in what you have to say. Antennae waggling a little uncertainly, Victor looks at me. The story has been taken without consent. If you see it on Amazon, report the incident. I was just going to ask if you were going to head to the 5th stratum straight away. Now that the situation with Green Mountain has been resolved, you can leave if you want to. As much as I would like to flee down to the 5th and start hunting slugs, there is one thing I should probably look into before I go. We captured a Grand Priest, did we not? Can you get Bain, or someone else, to go and talk to that guy? We should try and find out who they are and what they know. I can do that, eldest. Will you speak to them yourself? Well, I probably will, but let Bain speak to him first. Then get him to report to you, then you report to me. The general hesitates for a moment, confused. Why wouldn't you speak to him directly, eldest? No reason at all. Now, let me attend to these skills. Can't keep them waiting, haha. Okay. Sure, I'll let him know. Great. The general hesitates for a moment, half turning away, still watching me closely. Are you sure you're fine, eldest? Never better. I'm full of belief in myself. Lots of confidence right now. Just so dang confident. If I were any more confident, I'd be a fund manager. Oh, have you heard of Merchant's new initiative? What? I mean, yes. I just don't have time for it right now. Skills, you know how it is. All right then, I'll leave you to it. I am overcome with an almost physical sense of relief as she finally leaves and I can devote myself fully to my currently chosen distraction. Without hesitation, I whip up the menu and start carefully inspecting all of my skills, devoting all of the focus I can muster with 4 brains. Which is quite a considerable amount. Immediately, it's easy to see that I have been somewhat neglectful to my status screen. It appears as though the Triad had gotten in here and done some tinkering while evolving me and I haven't bothered to check, and thus haven't noticed. I've been benefiting from some of these improved skills without even realizing I had them. Suboptimal, as Grannon would say. If I check the descriptions and start to consciously utilize them, their effectiveness will go up tremendously. Let's see what they got up to. Master Grip has been upgraded into Grandmaster Grip V. Stealth also unexpectedly jumped a rank, not sure exactly how useful that will be from here on out, but hey, why not? Diamond Mind went up a rank to Unbroken Mind V, which is quite the milestone. As a skill which improves my willpower and defense against unwanted influence, this is an important upgrade. Especially right before I return to the 5th. Keen eye and manifold high focus, the latter one of my new fused skills, have reached rank 5 and 6 respectively, sharpening my senses and improving my ability to focus on more than one thing at a time. Condensed mana hit rank 6, along with external mana manipulation and mana sensing. Very nice. My omni-elemental affinity is almost ready to hit rank 7. I'm super keen to see what happens when I reach that milestone, but I still need another 20 levels. Force magic is up, as is barrier magic. Both reached rank 5. Endure hit rank 6, Mandible Parry hit 4, and my precog agile defense reached 5. Wowee, that is a heck of a lot of skills. Maybe it was that bad. With all of these skill upgrades, I'm ready to annihilate the 5th stratum. Let me at him. 1745. Bane wasn't sure how he was supposed to feel upon meeting the Grand Priest once more. There had been a time when he had hoped that others of his old order might see as he now saw, and be drawn into the light of this new path. After the tragedy in the Silver City, he was no longer certain. Head bowed in thought, he wandered the pathways inside the nest, moving towards the holding cells. Well lit and spacious, these corridors were just another example of the colony's care for those who chose to walk alongside them. Bane often reflected on the fact that the ants' passageways tended to be cramped and dark, which was how they preferred them, dense tunnels designed for ants to pack in on all sides. Yet, when it came to the humans and others who shared their living spaces, the colony was generous with the things that they were reluctant to give themselves. There were no others sharing this corridor with him at the moment, no one else to enjoy the flawless carvings, the woven rugs or the soft glow of the enchanted sconces evenly spaced along the walls. He patted in silence, the only sound the muted tap of his ant-headed staff upon the floor. When he reached his destination, he stepped from the corridor and into a shared space, guarded by a dozen ants who kept a careful, unmoving watch upon those locked within. For this block of 24 cells, the majority appeared to be filled with members of the Judgment Battalion, all of whom appeared wan and fading, inexplicably weak. "Excuse me, where can I find the priest, Alier Venting?" he asked, using his now flawless pheromonal speech. "He is in the cell towards the back, the one on the right," came the prompt reply. Once upon a time, the ants had reacted with surprise and shock when he spoke to them with pheromones, wondering how he produced them without a relevant gland. They often lost interest when told it was a function of mana. Nowadays, others speaking in the same manner as them was no longer surprising. This was incredibly pleasing to Bane, a sign of the growing closeness between the colony and those who walked the path alongside them. "Thank you. May the Great One illuminate your steps." Who, too distracted to sniff the guard's reply, Bane resolutely began to walk to the rearmost cells. Far more luxurious than anything he had ever seen be called a prison in the past, the small rooms were nonetheless barren and cramped by colony standards, with those within fully visible to anyone on the outside. This book is hosted on another platform. Read the official version and support the author's work. Alier Venting was exactly where the guard had told him, seated comfortably, sipping a cup of tea, his robes still stained with dirt from the battlefield. Instantly, Bane's heart ignited in anger. He knew. It was impossible for him to say how he knew, but he did, a burning certainty filling his chest and sizzling behind his eyes, turning all doubt to shreds. "It was you," he said. He came to a stop just outside of reach of the bars behind which the Grand Priest was contained, staring hard at the man within. For his part, Alier seemed unperturbed, lowering his cup as he turned towards his latest guest. "You will need to be a little more clear," he said. Bane lifted his staff and crashed it down on the stone floor in a fit of anger. "It was you," he exploded. "You were the one behind the capture of the lost ant in the Silver City. That time in the library, you were trying to extract information from me, learn all you could. I thought perhaps you may have seen a glimmer of light in the new path, but all along you were planning your heresy." The one-armed priest spat the word with disgust. It wasn't enough to contain all of the disdain, all of the horror he felt at what the man before him had done, but he did not know of a stronger word. "You speak to me of heresy?" Alier scoffed. "A fallen priest of the way who lost his mind along with his arm. The only light in your eyes is that of madness. Monsters are here for our glory, not the other way around. I have done nothing but follow the path as it was laid before us at the dawn of Pangara. You were once a person who understood that. I was shown a greater truth. A partnership and a way forward that uplifts all involved. Look at the prosperity and power all around you and tell me I am wrong." Alier looked down at the exquisite porcelain cup he held in his hand. Disdainfully, he released his grip, letting it shatter on the floor. "You are wrong," he said simply. There was no saving him. No point in even making the attempt. For the first time since his awakening, Bane felt something close to hate. He did not pity, or lament the blindness of the man in front of him. Those things could be forgiven. His actions, however, were irredeemable. Sitting in a cell, telling me you have done nothing wrong, Bane ground out. I wonder if they will see things the same way. He tilted his head, ever so slightly, towards the imposing ant head carving atop his staff. For the first time since he had appeared, Alir looked somewhat nervous. Threatening me, a grand priest of the church? He sneered. Look at how far you have fallen. Is there anything left of your decency, of your faith? My faith has never burned brighter, Bane muttered, eyes boring a hole in the man in front of him. If you can be threatened with the truth, then perhaps you walk the wrong path. I will tell them what you have done, then your fate will be left in their mandibles. Normally, the justice of the colony is quite lenient, but, for you, I foresee a different outcome. If they kill me, they will bring down a storm upon their own idiotic, monstrous heads, Alir shot back. You know that. Do you intend to endanger your own false salvation? I'll tell them, but it won't make a difference. Bane took a solemn step back. Walk in the light of the true path, he said, for whatever time remains to you. 1746. Less than an hour after the fallen priest had left him, Alir was taken from his cell. The ants did not bother to communicate with him, nor did they bring a human to answer his questions. A lack of courtesy that had not been present until this moment. He really told them. Deep down, the Grand Priest had not truly believed that Bane, although he had fallen far, would really inform the ants that he had been the one to perform the ritual. It was a baseless accusation, he had no evidence. Even if he did, he knew what would happen to the colony if they executed a Grand Priest of the Way. Tensions were already high within the dungeon and the church was agitating against the monsters in every throne room, every council chamber and every board meeting across Pangara. Defeating the Judgment Battalion may already have been enough to light the tinder, but sentencing him for a completely legal act. It was madness. Madness. And yet, hadn't he said it himself? Bane was surely insane. The priest was a lost cause, unworthy of re-education. What of the colony, then? Had they no sense of self-preservation? They had been just as active as the church had been in trying to sway opinion towards them. Trade, games, gifts, every trick in the book. They had to know what would happen. Alir didn't want to die. Not to monsters. The very idea of it seemed unholy and backwards. Monsters existed for the sole reason of strengthening the faithful, he sincerely believed that. Those who died in the dungeon were simply lacking in belief, or unworthy of the path's gifts. Alir Vinting was neither of those things. All his life, he had been devoted. He had progressed along the path, advanced his class, worked tirelessly for the exploitation of the dungeon and uplifted the church. He would not die this way. When he was delivered, like a portion of food, to the feet of the giant ant monster that had terrorized the Judgment Battalion, all the defiance and anger Alir had felt melted away, evaporating into mist. This creature did not care for his service, did not care for his views or sentiment. Even standing in its presence was difficult, so suffocating was the aura of power that rolled from it. With eyes like gleaming jewels, it looked down at him, mandibles twitching, and he couldn't help but picture what they would do to him if he were to be bitten. Its mind connected to his so quickly he didn't even have a chance to rebuff the contact. Like a puppy gripped by the scruff of its neck, he was held up and examined, falling limp and unable to resist. I know you, the ant said to him. Alir tried to think of nothing, to communicate nothing, but that was impossible. The monster was already beyond his guard. They had indeed met before, within the Silver City. You already had your eyes on us back then, the ant mused, its voice thundering inside his head. Well now, this will be unpleasant, for both of us. You could be reading stolen content. Head to the original site for the genuine story. There was no apology in the creature's tone, and that was all the warning Alir received. Immediately, the beast began to rummage through his mind, hunting through his memories like a scholar flipping through the pages of a book. It wasn't painful, not exactly, but it was extremely uncomfortable. This is illegal, he managed to push out as he grit his teeth. Plenty of evil things are legal, the ant refuted him, not really paying attention. For example, what you did to my sister. So why wouldn't this? That was the memory Alir was most desperate to hide, but the more he tried to avoid it, the more the ant dove towards it, seizing on his every weakness and moment of doubt to pry a little deeper and reveal a little more. Eventually, there was no avoiding it, the creature's mind was overwhelmingly powerful compared to his own, and it pried him open easier than a person eating shellfish. In full and excruciating detail, the ant went through every moment of the process. From the successful abduction of the ant, to the final drop of essence that had been harvested from its lifeless form, not a single detail was overlooked, not 1 second passed over. Crack! Alir jumped in fright, unable to contain himself as those two gigantic mandibles crashed together. He could almost feel them snapping shut around his neck, but they did not. Not yet. I see, the ant said. Bane was right. You were the one. You can't kill me. Alir shrieked across the mind bridge. You will surely spark a war that you cannot afford. The ant tilted its head slightly. Kill you? Why do you think I would ever let you off that easily? It let that thought ring and echo inside Alir's head and turned to one side as he tried to process what he had heard. What did they intend to do to him? What horrors were these insects capable of inflicting on those they believed had wronged them? There was a flash of light and another, smaller ant appeared, as if materializing from thin air. Is this the one? It said. There was an underlying disgust in the newcomer's tone, as if it didn't want to be here, wanted no part in this process. Was this to be his executioner? This is him, the giant ant confirmed, not bothering to exclude Alir from the conversation. It truly thought so little of him. Well, if anyone deserved it, this is them, the little ant sighed, then addressed him directly. Hey, you, which arm is your favorite? It stood, watching him, waiting for an answer. Alir felt his mouth go dry. They were going to take an arm. His mind raced. If all they did was take a limb, he could consider himself to have gotten off lightly, but he felt sick at the thought of losing an arm. I'm left-handed, he lied. I'm in your head, the giant ant reminded him, irritated. Right arm, then, the little ant confirmed. Well, come along. I don't want to take any longer on this than I have to. What are you going to do? He asked, scared to hear the answer, but more scared not to know. The little ant prodded him, getting Alir moving in the direction it wanted. I've been told that your people have never been able to extract essence from non-monsters. It was an interesting problem, I'll grant you, but clearly none of them were brilliant. It took Alir a moment to understand just what was being said. Once he did, he felt the contents of his stomach rising up to the back of his throat. They hadn't. They couldn't. Today, we are going to find out how your essence tastes, the little ant confirmed for him, then clacked her mandibles disapprovingly. Revolting, I bet. 1747. Life was never easy for a monster, that was what she had learned since the time of her spawning. Leaking ichor, poisoned and corrupted, she clawed her way down the tunnel, each of her 6 legs crippled in one way or another. Yet, were she to remain behind, death would surely find her. As it had always been, forward was the only way to go. Why the slug creatures had sought her out so desperately, she had no idea, but now, as she dragged her form into the tunnel that led to the next stratum, she knew she was finally free of them. Electricity rippled across her frame, cauterizing her wounds, burning out the infection and sending waves of pain rolling through her body. Her mandibles chattered as she steeled herself against the suffering. Without this ability, she would never have made it through the toxic environment of the 5th. Even with it, the damage and scars that had been inflicted on her would take a significant amount of time to fade. Unsteady, she paused for a moment, shrouded in the darkness of the tunnel. Behind her, the virulent toxicity of the stratum she left behind surged and boiled, as if furious to have failed to ensnare its prey. Ahead, the mana thickened precipitously. At the end of the tunnel, a storm cloud, wreathed in purple lightning, writhed like a living thing. Even from here she could feel powerful winds blowing against her antennae, setting the hairs on her frame to quivering. This promised to be an environment more to her liking. Perhaps she would finally be able to restart, rebuild the life that had been robbed from her before, so soon after her birth. Anger rippled through her form and she chittered again, unhappy to be reminded of what had transpired in the past. She had been much weaker then, much less evolved. Since that loss, she had vowed that she would grow stronger, smarter, better able to defend what she had claimed. The same mistakes would not be repeated again. After a period of rest, she raised up on her legs once more and began to advance. Despite the pleasure she felt at being able to leave the hellish 5th behind, she did not underestimate the 6th. Danger only increased in the dungeon, she had learned that painful lesson many times over as she had descended. Who could say what dangers would lurk within the 6th? No, taking it lightly would be a death sentence. All senses alert, she crept toward the border. The moment her antennae came into contact with the cloud, they flared to life, her senses blaring with new information. Mana so thick as to be intoxicating battered against her, rich with power, laden with a weight and density that tantalized her core. You could be reading stolen content. Head to novel bin for the genuine story. Eager for more, she moved forward, her legs gripping tightly. There was nothing to be seen yet, the clouds swirled too densely for her eyes, yet her antennae told her so much. Once she finally broke through, the tunnel edge fell away, so she clung to the rock and held her position, hanging upside down, antennae waggling. A vast open space stretched beneath her, a raging storm filling it entirely. Winds so powerful and sharp they could shear through rock sliced through the open air and boomed with an almost constant peal of thunder. Yes, this was different. The last stratum had been a disappointment, to say the least. She had hoped to claim territory within, hidden from the eyes and grasping hands of the small ones who infested the fourth, but it had proven to be uninhabitable. This place seemed much more promising. No toxins, no slugs, and so far, no small ones. Here she might finally reclaim that which had been taken from her. Her carapace buzzed with anticipation of that which was to come, but she quickly stifled those emotions. Nothing was certain yet. Exploration and investigation were necessary before she could make a proper decision. Only after hunting, judging the suitability of the prey and the environment, could she discern whether she would thrive here. Cautious, she continued to cling to the rock. And began to investigate. Moving slowly, she began to explore around the tunnel entrance, widening her path over time, antennae never ceasing to move while her mind reached out to interpret the mana that swirled so vigorously. Frustratingly, she still couldn't see through the dense cloud, but nevertheless, she learned. Monsters were flying through it, not too strong, judging by the power of their cores, but there was a chance they were concealing their real strength. If she could learn to do it, then other monsters could too. Once she had healed a little more, she might be strong enough to challenge one. Wings flexed along her back, keen to take flight, but she was patient, continuing her slow, methodical pattern of exploration. Despite her precautions, there were still leftover effects of the fifth's poison in her system, and possibly parasites that needed to be removed before they caused further damage. Once that was done, she would begin to hunt. And then, if she were successful, she would begin to look for a proper location to claim as her own. Excitement surged again, and this time, she did not suppress it. Something simply felt right about this place, as if it were where she should have been born all along. Her children might have fallen before, but she had grown so much since then, and ensured that the next generation that were born would be so much more than the offspring she had failed before. Soon, the hive would be reborn. Wings fluttering, then vigorously buzzing, the queen let go of the rock and let herself drop into the storm. 1748. After seeing off that creepy priest and neatly avoiding Bane, I slip out of the nest and down into the depths with Tiny, Invidia and Chrysalis. After settling the issue of the mountain, it's time for us to go and do Solent a favor. The fifth is calling and there are some slugs I can't wait to catch up with. Gway hey. Seriously though, if we can make a difference in this conflict and tip it firmly into the colony's favor, then that will hopefully free up some resources. Right now, pretty much the entire military output of the colony is being poured into this invasion. All of the new graduates from the Antacademy, all the metal, the armor, the weapons, the biomass, the cores, the engineers, the construction crews, the healers, the core shapers, everything. Building the first fortress was such a vast undertaking, but I know for a fact that Solent intends to build one for each heart the colony managed to locate. I can scarcely imagine the sheer quantity of resources required to pull off such a thing. If one were to pay for it all at market rates, you could probably afford to buy the Silver City for a similar amount. I knew it was going to be hard to conquer the fifth and that we would need to sacrifice, but this is getting right out of hand. If I get in there and kick some backside, hopefully it will relieve the burden on the rest of the colony, at least a little. No, Chrysalis, for the last time, you can't come with me out of the safe zones. But master, she protests, again, how will we know you are safe? I can hide inside your carapace. You won't even know I'm there. Unlikely. I've gotten better at spotting when she tries to sneak inside my body, and it's frankly shocking how often she tries it. We've been over this. The mana is toxic. The mana, it goes inside my body when I'm out there. Remember, considering you are more vulnerable to that mana than the rest of us, it decidedly isn't safe for you to hide in there. Unable to refute my flawless logic, Chrysalis is reduced to sulking as she clings to my back while we run down to the fifth. Solent has had them build all sorts of fancy, quick mechanisms and roads to move from the nest to the staging area, but I don't fit in most of them, sadly. Not a big deal, it just means it takes us a little longer to get down there. I only have to tell Chrysalis to withdraw from my carapace twice during the trip. Progress. When we get down there, the sheer scale of what Solent has been doing strikes me right in the face like a rocket-propelled baseball bat. The narrative has been illicitly obtained. Should you discover it on Amazon, report the violation. I thought the staging area was absurdly huge before, but it's grown to 3 or 4 times the previous size. Huge warehouses, enormous training grounds, entire fields of workshops and foundries. Barracks are stacked on barracks which are stacked on storage which lives on top of a hospital. It's as if the entire section of dungeon around the entrance to the 5th has been transformed for kilometers in every direction. No wall is left untouched, everything has been carved out and filled with some sort of functional space. The open areas are likewise transformed into an almost obsessively organized grid of production. And the movement, the entrance to the 5th appears as a vacuum nozzle, sucking in everything I see at a furious, almost dizzying pace. Only then does it really hit home that Sloane and Victor really weren't exaggerating. Everything is going down there. My gob is fully smacked. There's so much going on that I almost don't see the 3 legionaries waiting for me with their arms crossed. Sadly, I still do. Even more sadly, they see me before I manage to slink off. Damn it, I knew upgraded stealth wasn't going to do squat anymore. Morelia shoots me an apologetic shrug as the 3 begin to march in my direction. At their lead, the commander, Chiron, looks positively thunderous. Why, it's not as if I tried to sneak off. Oh, that's sort of what I did, actually. I'm supposed to let them know where I go so they can tag along, my disapproving, monster-hating shadows. Well, Morelia is fine. I forgot, alright, sheesh, is my brilliant defense after connecting the mind bridge. Chiron glares at me, which is a lot less intimidating than she thinks it is. I find it increasingly hard to take people seriously now that they're so fun-sized. No, I mustn't try and tickle. You're going back into the 5th? She asks me, rather directly. Yes, I'm only up here because of the threat posed by Green Mountain. Now that's been resolved, I need to get down there and help with the invasion. Resolved, I suppose that's one way of putting it. Are they going to keep trying to abduct my family members? No, sounds resolved to me. Ha, not even Chiron can argue with that. And I suppose the call doesn't have anything to do with how eager you are to descend. She asks pointedly. Gah, don't remind me about it. I've been doing a good job of ignoring it, but one mention is all it takes to bring the hook latched into my soul back into sharp focus. It's been agonizing to remain in the 4th, and now that I'm this close to the 5th, it feels as if someone is actively yanking on the chain. Knowing there's a tunnel not far away that will make the pain go away is a powerful motivator. It isn't a non-factor, I admit. It hurts like heck, and if you manage to get through the 5th, Chiron presses me. What then? You go on to the 6th and conquer that for your family. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it. Most people of Pangara have no idea what's down there. I'm curious. Wouldn't you be curious? She just stares at me. I think she knows I want to conquer it for my family. 1749. Morelia knew that Commander Chiron and the other legionaries would never admit it, but what the colony had achieved in the 5th stratum was incredibly impressive. Even though many kingdoms, empires and alliances had made attempts to do the same in the past, they had always failed. It was too hard and the cost simply couldn't be sustained long enough to make meaningful progress. Anthony and his family were perhaps the only ones capable of the obscene level of commitment required to get the job done, and getting the job done they were. Even the Abyssal Legion, for all their power and secrets, hadn't been able to conquer the 5th. They had found ways to adapt to it, established their outposts and managed to breach it, something nobody else had ever succeeded in doing, yet they were now heavily outnumbered in the 5th by the ants. This ant is getting out of hand, Chiron said, snapping Morelia's attention back to the present. Anthony, she clarified, I mean, the target. We were warned it would be difficult to observe. I genuinely can't tell if the creature is simply a forgetful, bumbling idiot, or a duplicitous sneak trying to throw us off the scent, Tribune Orales complained. Does it really expect us to believe it simply didn't remember to tell us it was leaving to invade another stratum? Morelia was quietly confident that was exactly what had happened. In her experience, anything Anthony found annoying, he was liable to ignore, and she had no doubt he thought his Legion observers were extremely annoying. For one, they had been foisted on him by Solent, not something he had taken on willingly. He likely agreed that the deal was worth it for his family, otherwise he wouldn't tolerate them at all. But all she said was, "It doesn't matter either way, does it? Our task hasn't changed." "That's right," Chiron affirmed, her eyes hard. "At this rate, we can be certain that the ant will make it to the 6th stratum. It's our responsibility to ensure that the Legion is ready for when and where that takes place. Our problem is, just how strong is this ant going to be when it gets there?" Chiron watched the giant ant walking in front of them with cold, judging eyes, giving Morelia and her fellow tribune a moment to consider what she had said. Indeed, what Anthony had done to the Judgment Battalion was nothing less than shocking. He had endured a truly absurd amount of punishment, allowed himself to be battered by 9,000 dungeon-hardened troops, and come out the other side with barely a scratch. That level of endurance, that level of healing, was absurd, even for a Tier 8 mythic. The author's tale has been misappropriated. Report any instances of this story on Amazon. Luckily, even Anthony didn't seem to realize how extraordinary his own evolution had become. If he reaches Tier 9, even the Legion may not be able to deal with him, Chiron muttered softly, turning back to look her two tribunes in the eye. Praetorian armor is powerful, capable of battling even in the depths, but that ant cannot be allowed to double its power again. I don't doubt it will prove to be successful in taking the fight to the craft. It was before it evolved, but we have to find ways to restrict its ability to gain XP and levels. I want the two of you to work on a strategy and report to me as soon as you have something." Morelia and Orles gave each other the side eye. They didn't particularly like each other, even still, and moments of genuine cooperation between them remained rare. After all, they were technically competing for promotion on the officer's fast track, something Orles had made clear he would never give up. "Of course, Commander," Orles stated, smashing out a salute before Morelia could get out a word. "We will have a strategy on your desk before the day is done." Morelia started. They would. How exactly were they going to prevent Anthony from doing whatever the heck he wanted to do? He'd made it perfectly clear he wasn't going to allow anyone to put restrictions on where he could go and what he could do. The only people he was ever going to listen to were members of his own family, and they were unlikely to ask him to restrict his movements in the 5th. If anything, they would do the opposite. Morelia knew for a fact that Solent had been trying to get Anthony back into the 5th for days now, desperate to have him reinforce the colony's faltering front lines. "We will do our best, Commander," she said firmly, snapping out a salute of her own. Chiron nodded, expecting nothing less from them, then turned back to keep walking, the three of them still trailing in the wake of the monster they had been sent here to kill. If that had been a long shot before, it was impossible now, and Morelia couldn't help but feel relieved that was the case. Anthony had made it perfectly clear that a 5,000-strong legion wouldn't be enough to kill him. To bring him down, something more would be needed. And if he managed to evolve just one more time, what could possibly hope to bring him down at that point? Morelia suppressed a shiver. Tier 9 monsters were mythical creatures to anyone who had experience in the dungeon. Unable to rise to the 4th, they were almost unheard of, impossible beings of strength and power no human could ever hope to match. Down in the depths, the Legion's finest contended with beasts such as those. Perhaps soon, Anthony would be down there among them.